The big two, Marvel and DC, and by extension, superheroes, have had a stranglehold on the comic book industry for, I mean, we could say about 40 years, I think, is fair to say. And it's only really now that there's even a resurgence of other kinds of comics coming from Image and Boom and things like that, strongly. But one of the biggest questions that people always ask is whether or not the big two care to make good comics anymore. Because according to everybody, sales are the only thing that ultimately matter, and that things like Amazing Spider Man will sell just because of who's on the marquee, having little or nothing to do with the quality of the books. People always bring up sales and say that sales are down, and that is a direct reflection of the industry's lack of interest in publishing quality comics, focusing on gimmicks and variants and things of that nature to pop sales. Do you guys agree? Do you agree? Do you believe that Marvel and DC no longer have a vested interest in publishing the best comics that they possibly can?
I mean, yes, I do believe that. Even at my most cynical, because at the end of the day, they got to have something to farm these films out of,
That is pretty cynical.
right? Like the Civil War came out in 2007, and then the film came out in 20, what, 15?
Something like, yeah, yeah.
Like they have decades of stories to pull from, and they're running through the good ones. Like they're gonna have to pump out some great ones. Yeah, of course they do. They got to make money off those things.
This is a tough one for me because, like, in my head, I'm like thinking, all right, do the creators want to make good comics? Of fucking course, obviously, they're the ones making the art. But if we kind of expand out from there and think about it as like, do Marvel and DC want to make comics, or do they just want to make something that sells? Um, I don't know. It's tricky for me because that's why we have a whole bunch of Spider-Man number ones, is to pop those numbers and make those sales. All sales are short-sighted in terms of their gains. And is that in the benefit of creative? We would argue probably no, because a lot of people complain about the constant number ones and how it breaks up creatively stories and how it's more of a jumping off point for some people. But if you look at the numbers, those number ones pop and it gets money. And that's what the companies want to do. So it's tricky. I think if I'm trying not to be cynical, of course they want to make stuff good, like Cale said, because good stories will draw people to the product, no matter what. But when I am cynical, I don't think they think about that. They're just thinking about the next quick dollar. So this is a tough one for me to think about, honestly.
Yeah. I am a firm believer that Marvel and DC care about putting out good comics. I do believe that. And I don't have any part of me that thinks otherwise. I just think that it's really hard to make good comics. And I think that there are a lot of other factors that play into their ability to always do the best that they can do. Like let's take an example, a more recent example like Blood Hunt, right? And Jed McKay's involvement with that. Now, from an art side of things, I think pretty much anybody who would look at Blood Hunt would see the Pepe Larraz art. I believe he was colored there by Mark de Gracia. You're going to look at that and you're going to say, oh my God, this is one of the coolest things I've ever seen, right? But you read the book, and I don't think I've seen anyone be more generous to it than to say that was a fun blockbuster story, right? Like that's the most praise I've seen. No one has said it was a revelation. No one has said, it changed my life. None of that. It's not no one's favorite book, okay? Jed McKay did his best. That doesn't mean that was the best he could do. In the sense that it's an event. So there are a lot of other factors. You got to make sure you use this person. You got to make sure you get us to this place. Like maybe he had no plans for Doctor Doom, but because Marvel has their One World Under Doom and they've got Robert Downey Jr., maybe he was forced to include Doom. Maybe he had another path that the event could have gone down. Maybe it wasn't his idea. Maybe it was someone else's idea and they needed him to execute it and he didn't have his heart and soul in it. Maybe he's busy as hell. Jed McKay has a lot of books under his belt. Maybe he couldn't dedicate the time he needed to dedicate to make sure that the script was as good as it could have been. All of those things could be true. None of that has to do with him or CB, Cebulski, or Tom Brevoort, or anybody else going, hey, let's make this suck. You know, like that wasn't anybody's idea. Or let's get this agenda in so that we can ruin the book with our politics. No, none of that.
It's for sure that nobody's intention is for a book to be bad. Sometimes the machine can make books not great because it goes through editorial, which then has mandates, requires sales. So sometimes that definitely causes things. But I don't think there's ever an intent of, like you said, let's make this shitty. It makes no sense from a business standpoint.
It's hard to add anything there. Like at the like that's almost the end of the sentence. Like, you know, these things gotta sell.
Yeah, and it's a bit frustrating to see that that is a common belief that that if you think comics are not good, which I think these two tend to go hand in hand. I don't think modern comics are good, and I think it's because modern comics creators suck, or because they have to insert their political agenda that it waters down the quality of the book to make it bad. And I just don't see how you could possibly believe that. Like, if you come from the perspective of Marvel and DC don't care to put out great books, do you think that the great books that we do get, if you believe there are any, are just like slip ups? Like, are they lucky? Like, is Birds of Prey did they just luck up on that being quality? Like, why did they go get Kelly Thompson? What you like? Why did they get Leonardo Romero to do that if they wanted it to suck?
DC was like during the New 52, we want this to suck real bad. Get that Spawn artist. Spawn's not popular anymore. Get him on the Batman book. Oh, whoops. Then you got Capullo and Snyder's.
Yeah, I had to really think about that. Todd McFarlane. Like...
Yeah, I was like, what book did he do in the New 52? Yeah, I just don't think that is what is happening. And I think, you got to give people grace, man. And, like, there are books that are not my cup of tea on the stands for sure. And I just realized that those people are trying their best, different strokes for different folks at the end of the day. I don't think there's an agenda.
And I think that's a healthy way of thinking about it too. It's that you are small in the comparison of the greater idea of comics. Because you don't like it doesn't mean that they're doing it to screw you up.
Right. Like you just have to you just have to have a baseline belief that everybody involved in this is trying to make good books. Like I don't understand. Like someone will say insert creator's name or insert editor's name, tends to be a woman. And it's like, this person is burning the industry down on purpose. Well, don't they make money through this? Like, isn't this how they feed their families? Why would they come in with a vested interest to burn it all down?
Or do you really think comics pays that much? Like,
even worse, do you know what an editor does? Like, I always like when the editor gets a tax or something, because it's like, I don't think that's what they do.
I will say this though. I don't think that Marvel and DC head honchos have a vested interest in making it as easy as possible to make a great comic. So if something would cause there to be less money or a comic not to come out on time, therefore there being less money, if something that would improve quality would make it harder to sell or sell less, I think the big two would often go with what they could do to sell more comics, even if it will hurt the quality of the book. Stuff like having to get a fill-in artist, for example.
Yeah.
It definitely has a detrimental impact on some books, but Marvel and DC are not going to delay Batman in order to make time to, to give the artist the best amount of the time they need to make it happen. That's not going to occur.
That's when I say the machine can cause things that are bad for the books. Sure.
They're also not going to stop forcing and mandating events that don't spawn creatively from what, the creators are doing. We're always going to get events.
Yeah, until events themselves stop selling, we're going to keep getting.
Right. And that doesn't appear to be on the horizon. Do you guys at home, sorry, Cale, did you have a...
I was going to make a crack about paying creators what they deserve in order to get good ideas and better art. And, their head honchos aren't going to do that either, because that's going to, cost more money. And anyway.
All right. Fair enough. I know some people will disagree with our sentiment. Leave it in the comments. I promise I won't roast you. Unless you use the word woke, then I will. But otherwise, give us your honest thoughts about this subject. I know it's a hot button one. Thank you for listening. We will see you in the next one. Until then, take care, guys.